Warning, the podcast contains opinions that might be different than yours. None of the methods mentioned were scientifically proven and should not be attempted without adult supervision. The author does not guarantee applying the methods discussed will have any effect on your well-being or financial situation. Pineapple on a pizza is an abomination. Handshot first, I regret nothing. I figured that if I want to help you have a better relationship with your clients, the best way to start would be to give you some pointers and advice that you can start using immediately. It's some pretty basic stuff, but stuff that matters nonetheless. Some people are very social and empathic by nature. Some aren't, but even if you were born a cold-hearted sociopath, there's still some hope for you. You'll just need to put in more work. Some of the tips can be employed right away, some require a bit more time and effort, but believe me, all of them will pay dividends in the end. Hi, I am Pavel and welcome to the North of Rapture podcast. This series is all about communication with clients from a designer's perspective. So the first tip is a very important one, but it's also something many people don't pay enough attention to, and I think it's a big mistake. This is also one of those things where some of you might need to fight your insecurities, so it might be a bit difficult to implement. It's going to be worth it though. When you're contacting your client over the internet, remember that technology matters and the quality of your feed will make a difference. There are two basic components to that. One, go with a video call as opposed to just audio, even if your client won't. If you're a shy, introverted artist who's not comfortable with showing their face, well, tough luck. You'll need to power through that because the benefits will outweigh any discomfort you might initially feel. And believe me, that discomfort will pass. I'm speaking from experience. And two, you might want to invest in a decent mic. Doesn't need to be anything fancy, just something that won't make your clients think they're talking to you through a can on a string. Now, why is it so important? It will show whoever you're talking to that you're serious, professional, open, and not some creep dressed in a Pokemon onesie with crumbs of yesterday's pizza all over you. That is not a self-reference, by the way. It will help establish trust between you and your client and might also convince them to use a camera as well if they weren't using one already. More on the benefits of actually seeing who you're talking to in another episode. If nothing else, showing yourself seems like basic courtesy to me. You wouldn't go to a meeting and spend the entire thing sitting with your back towards the person you're talking to, right? Same rule applies here. I'll expand on the subject in a future episode where I'll be talking about reading your client's reactions. The second hugely important thing might seem like the biggest no-brainer there is, and nothing beyond common sense. And yet, I see people do it all the time. Do not bullshit your client. There's this very common phrase thrown about in our industry, fake it till you make it. Now, this is my personal opinion on the matter, but that statement is asinine. If you can't do something, you can't do something. The chances you'll produce quality results for a type of project you've never done before and on your first try are minimal. Granted, if you're working in a team where you can get support, or if you have a lot of experience you might fall back on, it's a slightly different matter. But that's something you'll need to communicate to your client early and clearly either way. Now look, it's okay to admit you don't know something. It's okay to say you don't have experience in designing something the client needs from you. Just don't lie about it. The same rule applies to estimates, scoping sessions, product audits, and so on. If you can't answer your client's questions, don't make things up on the spot. Say you'll get back to them with the information they require. Just don't leave them hanging for too long. And this goes both ways. If you catch your client lying to you or clearly making things up, call them out on it, just in a civil manner. Also, if there are more people in the meeting, maybe you wait until it's over and send the client a private message. Oh, and be prepared to face some opposition. Conversations like that rarely go smooth. But as in any relationship, lies will only lead to conflict and problems. And it's really hard and sometimes impossible to regain trust afterwards. Now, one of the hardest aspects of communication, for me at least, is not jumping to conclusions and not making assumptions about what your client actually needs or what they really meant when they said. I still make the mistake of guessing the stuff the client wasn't specific about. The main reason why I do it is to save time. It's easier to assume things will happen in a project as they did in 5 others than to wait for hours or even days for an answer. Now the problem is, very often that time spent waiting for that answer might have saved you a ton of time afterwards. This is also one of the reasons why you need to have a decent level of proficiency in a second language if that's the language we are using to talk to your client. It's a natural mechanism to try to derive meaning from context when using a language that's not your native one, but for project stability and business relations, it might have unpleasant ramifications. So ask those questions and send those follow-up emails because they might save you a ton of grief. Another challenging thing is controlling your emotions. This is definitely something that requires some practice and introspection. Now, I don't want you to think that I'm suggesting that you need to act like a robot and not show feelings at all. That's not the case, but there's some risk in showing too much of what you feel. Of course, the main thing is not showing your anger, boredom, or dissatisfaction with either the client or the project. Clients will pick up on your negative emotions immediately, and even if they won't openly react, it's definitely going to rub off on them, and their perception of you will be affected. It might even cause some anxiety with further dealings with you.
Fear leads to anger. Anger leads to hate. Hate leads to contract dissolution.
You know the shtick. And no, I am not sorry for this horrible Yoda impression. Now I understand that it's not an easy thing to do. Self-control in heated moments will require some practice. Whine and curse as much as you want in private, but keep your cool with your clients. Not showing negative emotions is bad, but here's the kicker. Showing too much excitement can also lead to some problems, but of a different kind. When the client sees that you are super pumped about the project, they might try to use your zeal to their advantage. They might try to position themselves as if they are doing you a favor for, letting you participate in the project. You might think that's silly, but go on fist pumping and grinning constantly and you'll be paid in exposure in no time. So what's the bottom line? The bottom line is, be cool. Now, a few words about using lingo. When talking to your clients, try to be as clear and as straightforward as you can. Many of them will not be technical folks with enough industry experience and understanding to wrap their heads around the technical nonsense we can spew out on occasion. And even if they would understand all the terms and follow your trail of thought, it will still be less likely that there will be some misunderstandings if you just call a button a button. Now, it's fine to use lingo and shorthand when talking to your peers and teammates, of course, but when talking to clients, try to go easy with the techno-babble. Look, I think that direct contact with a client is the best way for a designer to produce quality work. Open and honest communication is worth more than all the design books you've ever read. Hey, this might be a far-fetched theory, but this is my podcast, so I'm sticking with it. But clients are just people, and you need to learn how to talk to people. I know many of you feel some apprehension when talking to a person you don't know. You don't know how to start a conversation, you don't know how the other person will react, how to deal with conflict, hell, even how to take a goddamn compliment. I was the same way, still am in certain ways. And a lot of designers are also introverts, which only further complicates the situation. Now, as difficult as it may be, if you want to be a good partner for your clients, you need to be able to listen. You need to be able to put yourself in their position, but most of all, you will need to understand them. If you want people to open up to you, you yourself need to be open to them. But that requires confidence and empathy, and that requires practice. So practice! Talk to the lady behind the counter in your grocery store. Ask your server at the cafe you're sitting at how his day was. Help the older gentleman and talk about weather. Those seemingly inconsequential interactions will accumulate into experience you'll use when communicating with your clients. And you'll be better off not only in your work, but your everyday life as well. Don't take my word for it, try it. You are listening to the North of Rapture podcast. This episode was made in association with NetGuru. If you have any comments, questions, or you just want to say hi, you can reach me at podcast@northofrapture.com. You can also follow me on Twitter and Instagram @northofrapture, all one word. Thanks for listening, until next time. And now if you'll excuse me, I need to return some videotapes.